People have been coming to this land in search of healing for thousands of years. Not to a building, not to a program, to this. They came before there were retreats, before there was language of naturopathic medicine or vitalistic philosophy. They came following something they could not fully explain, a pull towards a specific piece of earth, an instinct that something about this particular land had something to offer that could not be found elsewhere. We want to spend this video answering the question that the history raises. Why Sedona? Why, of all the places in the world where a healing retreat might be built, did we choose this one? And more importantly, does it matter? Yes, it does, and profoundly, and especially during a prolonged water fast. The red rock formations that surround Sedona are composed primarily of iron oxide rich sandstone deposited over 300 million years. They are not merely scenery. They are a specific geological environment with measurable properties that distinguish this land from almost anywhere else on Earth. The iron content of the rock interacts with the electromagnetic field in ways that have been noted and studied for over a century. The result is measurable energetic quality to this land, a coherence in the electromagnetic environment that researchers have been associated with the effects on human nervous systems that are not placebo. We are not asking you to believe in anything mystical. We are simply noting what the science observes, that the human body, which is itself an electromagnetic system, responds to electromagnetic environments, and that some electromagnetic environments, this one among them, produces effects on the nervous system that the body in a depleted or distressed state finds deeply supportive. During a prolonged water fast, when the nervous system is quieter and more sensitive at almost any other time in ordinary life, that electromagnetic environment speaks more clearly. We have watched guests arrive in Sedona after days of travel, exhausted, sometimes frightened, having braced themselves for a difficult work ahead, and feel a shift within hours of being here, not because of anything we did, because of the land. There are 6 specific characteristics of the Sedona environment that directly amplify what the body does during a prolonged water fast. Each one is real, each one is measurable, and together they create an environment for fasting that we believe is genuinely unique in the world. Number 1, altitude and atmospheric quality. Sedona sits at 4,400 feet above sea level, and the air here is physiologically different. The science tells us that at nearly 4,500 feet of elevation, Sedona's atmosphere carries a negative ion concentration significantly higher than at sea level or urban environments. Negative ions, oxygen atoms carrying an extra electron, are found in high concentrations near waterfalls, after rainstorms, in forests, and in high altitude desert plateaus. Research has consistently associated elevated negative ion exposure with reduced cortisol levels, improved serotonin regulation, faster immune recovery, and deeper, more restorative sleep. The reduced barometric pressure at this altitude also creates mild physiological adaptation that supports the metabolic processes activated during fasting. How it amplifies the fasting? Well, during a prolonged water fast, the body's healing processes are deeply dependent on quality of sleep, cortisol reduction, and immune function. Each of these is directly supported by the atmospheric conditions at Sedona's altitude. The air here is not incidental to the fasting experience. It is a foundational supportive element. Many guests report sleeping more deeply in their first night here than they have in months or years. That sleep quality is the altitude and the ions working alongside the fast. Almost every guest mentions the air within the first hours of arriving. Not the view, the air, the quality of it, the way their first breath feels like something is being given back. One guest described it as the first breath I've taken in years that didn't feel like work. That is not poetry, that is the body recognizing the supportive environment. The specific photonic environment of the Sedona High Desert supports the body's deepest circadian intelligence. The science tells us that at 4,500 feet in the high desert, the quality of the natural light is measurably different than from sea level or urban environments. The atmosphere is thinner and cleaner, producing a broader, more complete spectrum of natural sunlight. This full spectrum light has documented effects on the body's circadian rhythm, the hormonal and neurological clock that governs cortisol rhythm, melatonin production, immune cycling, and cellular repair scheduling. Morning exposure to Sedona's full spectrum light begins calibrating the body's circadian rhythm within the first day of arrival, supporting the natural schedule of rest and the repair that the fast deepens. So this is how it amplifies fasting. The body's deepest cellular repair processes, including autophagy, that is one of the extended fasting's most powerful benefits, follow a circadian schedule. They peak during deep sleep and in the early morning hours when the body is in the most regenerative state. A properly calibrated circadian rhythm is not a luxury during an extended fast. It is the biological framework on which the fast's healing work is organized. Sedona's light quality calibrates the framework more powerfully than most environments on Earth. Guests consistently describe waking up during their fast at Sedona with the quality of alertness and presence that is different from their experience at home. The morning light here is described as clean, alive, like being lifted from the inside. This is not subjective experience only. It is the circadian biology expressing itself in a properly calibrated photonic environment. The geological uniqueness of Sedona creates a measurable energetic field that supports nervous system coherence. The science tells us that the specific mineral composition of Sedona's iron-rich sandstone combined with the region's unique geological history creates a local electromagnetic field with properties that have been studied and documented for over a century. Sedona's vortex sites, locations where geological and electromagnetic conditions converge in specific ways, are not metaphor. They are measurable geophysical phenomena. Research has noted consistent effects in the galvanic skin response, heart rate variability, and reported subjective state of individuals spending time at these sites, effects that are consistent with parasympathetic nervous system activation. So how does this amplify fasting? Well, the human nervous system is itself an electromagnetic system. During a prolonged water fast, as the body's protective layers of habitual metabolic noise quiet down, this electromagnetic sensitivity becomes more pronounced. Guests consistently report a quality of the nervous system settling at Sedona that arrives faster and goes deeper than anywhere they have fasted before. The electromagnetic coherence of the land appears to speak directly to the body's own electromagnetic organization, supporting the parasympathetic dominance that is essential for the deepest fasting repair. The most common phrase guests use to describe their first day in Sedona is something settled. Not gradually, relatively quickly, within hours of arriving, something in the body's regulatory system shifted toward rest, towards ease, towards a quality of being held that most guests did not know they were missing until they felt it. This is what electromagnetic environments of this land produces, and it is one of the most valuable things it contributes to the fasting experience. Sedona's silence is not absent of sound. It is a presence with measurable effects on the healing nervous system. The science tells us that the human nervous system evolved in natural acoustic environments, wind, water, birdsong, and low frequency resonance of undisturbed land. Chronic exposure to urban noise, traffic, mechanical hum, the electromagnetic interference of dense human infrastructure produces measurable, sustained activation of the stress response. Research from environmental medicine has documented that even low-level chronic noise pollution elevates cortisol, disrupts sleep architecture, suppresses immune function, and accelerates cellular aging. The absence of urban noise, combined with the presence of Sedona's natural acoustic environment, produces the opposite cascade. Cortisol reduction, parasympathetic activation, deeper sleep, improved immune regulation. So here's how it amplifies fasting. Cortisol suppresses the immune response, inhibits cellular repair, and directly interferes with the autophagy and healing processes that extending fasting activates. A body fasting in a high cortisol environment is fighting itself. The fasting is trying to activate the repair while the stress response is inhibiting it. The quality of silence at Sedona removes that inhibition. The body's healing processes, freed from cortisol burden of chronic noise and stress, can operate at their full depth. The fast and the silence work together. Each amplifies what the other makes possible. Guests who have attempted extended fasts at home or in other environments consistently describe the Sedona silence as a qualitatively different experience. Some say, I don't know how loud my life was until I arrived here. The silence felt like something was being taken off my shoulders. And by the end of the first day, I stopped waiting for something to interrupt me. This is what a nervous system in genuine rest feels like. For many guests, it is the first time they have felt it. The Yavapai, Tonto Apache, and Sinagua peoples knew what this land offered before science had a language for it. The science shows us that the Yavapai and Tonto Apache peoples have lived in relationship with this land for thousands of years. They recognize specific formations and locations as places of particular healing power and sacred significance, long before any Western visitor arrived and long before any research instrument could measure what they observed. The practice of coming to this land in search of healing, renewal, and restoration is not a modern wellness invention. It is a human practice with roots that go back millennia and that has been validated by continuous human experiences across generations. So, how does it amplify with fasting? Well, we honor this history without claiming it. We acknowledge that what the original people of this land understood intuitively, that this specific geological and energetic environment has a unique relationship with human healing, has been confirmed by thousands of years of human experience and is now being articulated imperfectly and partially in a language of modern science. We have built this retreat in awareness of that history with the deep respect for the land that has been offering what it offers long before we arrived. Guests who arrive at Sedona Wellness Retreat without knowing its history often describe as an instinctive sense of recognition, of arriving somewhere that has been waiting. I've heard a guest say, I felt like the land knew I was coming. There was a quality of welcome in the rocks themselves. These are not fanciful observations. They are the modern expression of what every culture that has come to this land has reported, that it gives something, that it is generous in a way that other places are not. The sheer physical scale of the Sedona landscape does something specific to the human self and its concerns. The science tells us that the physiological and psychological effects of scale, of being in the presence of something vastly larger than oneself. Research at the University of California has documented that the awe-inducing experiences, encounters with something that exceeds one's current framework and demands a new one, produces measurable reductions in inflammatory cytokines, reductions in self-focused anxiety, increases in pro-social behavior, and a specific quality of mental expansion that is associated with improved problem solving and reduced psychological distress. The Sedona landscape, by any measure, is an awe-inducing environment. Its scale, its color, its apparent permanence in the face of human temporality, these produce the awe response reliably and deeply. So how does this amplify fasting? The concerns that accompany a serious illness, the fear, the self-focus, the sense of being confined to the dimensions of one's own struggle are metabolically expensive. They maintain cortisol, they suppress the immune function, they interfere with the parasympathetic dominance that the fasting is trying to establish. The experience of standing before the Sedona formations and feeling oneself briefly and as small and temporary being in the presence of something ancient and indifferent to the particulars of one's diagnosis. That experience is not an escape from the illness. It is a reorganization of its weight, and that reorganization, repeated daily during a prolonged fast, has real and measurable effects. Guests have said, I came here focused entirely on my cancer. By the end of the first week, I was still focused on healing. But somehow the cancer had gotten smaller and the world had gotten bigger. The rocks had something to do with that. This is the scale effect, not minimizing illness, just expanding the container in which illness is held. When we designed and created Sedona Wellness Retreat, we made one foundational decision before we made any other. Nothing we create will compete with what is already here. Every structure, every space, every outdoor area, every window is oriented towards the land, designed to maximize the fasting guest relationship with the environment that is working for their healing. Because during a prolonged water fast, the guest is not here to be distracted. They are here to be present, to rest, to allow the fast's deep work to proceed in the quietest, most supportive, most beautiful environment we could create. Every design decision was made with that in mind. Let's walk you through each space, how each was designed for the fasting guest. Up first are our guest rooms and private patios, a private sanctuary for deep rest and integration, private outdoor patio for solitary contemplation in the landscape, temperature and light controlled for optimal fasting and rest. A guest stated, "I spent more time on my patio than in my room. The rocks were the best company I had ever had for a fast." The fasting lounge, a communal space for resting guests during the fast. Comfortable, quiet, with views of the landscape where community forms in the shared stillness of fasting. No food, no television, just a space and companionship. A guest said, "I'd come in not knowing anyone, lie down, and find 3 other people doing the same thing. We barely spoke. We didn't need to." The meditation and gathering circles, afternoon gatherings, gentle group sharing, guided body awareness practices, the emotional and relational center of the fasting community. A guest said, "The afternoon activity was the part of the day I look forward to most. Just being in a place with people who understand exactly where I was." Our outdoor seating areas, multiple outdoor spaces throughout the retreat grounds, positioned at every point of the day's light path. The morning sun, afternoon shade, evening gold. For fasting guests, being outdoors is therapeutic. These spaces make it effortless. A guest said, "I'd move with the sun, morning spot, afternoon spot, evening spot. The day became about the light." And the healing gardens, native desert plantings, medicinal herbs, the sensory medicine of living things. Time in the gardens during the fast activates the body's parasympathetic response and healing through the presence of growing things. A guest said, "I'd go to the garden every afternoon just to hear something green and growing. It was the closest thing to food that felt nourishing." And the labyrinth, a walking meditation for the fasting body. The labyrinth offers a gentle movement, essential during an extended fast, in a structured, intentional form. Walking the labyrinth during a fast is described by most guests as one of the most meaningful experiences of their stay. A guest mentioned, "I walked it every morning for 21 days. Something different happened every single time." And next, the medicine wheel, a sacred ceremony space for closing rituals, personal reflection, and the integration of what the fast has opened, oriented to the 4 cardinal directions, surrounded by a full panorama of Sedona's landscape. A guest said, "I stood at the center of my last morning, and I felt like the land was saying goodbye. I never had that experience anywhere else." We could say more about the science of Sedona's effect on the nervous system. We could go deeper into the electromagnetic research, the altitude physiology, the documented effects of awe on inflammatory biology. All of that information is available, and we are glad to share it. But here is what we actually want to tell you at the close of this video. The most important thing about fasting in Sedona is not what we can explain. It is what you will experience in the moment that you arrive. Something settles. It happens for almost everyone. Usually within the first few hours. The shoulders drop, the breath deepens. The particular quality of fear and vigilance that has been running in the background, the fear that comes with illness, with the body feeling like it cannot be trusted, with the diagnosis that has changed everything. It does not disappear, but it quiets. Enough that something else can be heard. That something is the body's own intelligence, finally given enough space and enough quiet to be audible. And once you can hear it, the fasting can begin to do what it came here to do. This land has been offering that to people for thousands of years. We've built this retreat here so that we can hold it for you. And we cannot wait for you to experience what arrives when you do. You deserve an environment that is working for your healing at every level. Not just the therapies within it, but the land beneath you, the air around you, the silence that holds you, and the ancient intelligence of a place that has been welcoming people in search of healing for thousands of years.